The mining station floated alone in deep space, far from busy trade lanes. It was old, quiet, and mostly forgotten. The walls were dull gray, marked with years of small repairs. Inside the station, machines hummed softly, doing their work without complaint. People lived simple lives here. They worked, slept, and waited for the next supply ship. Lyra moved through a narrow corridor carrying a small tool case. She walked with calm steps, her boots making light sounds on the metal floor. She had finished a long shift repairing power lines near the outer ring. Her hands were tired, and her head ached from staring at screens all day. All she wanted now was rest. Lyra was not a soldier. She was an engineer. She fixed broken things. She liked order and logic. Machines made sense to her. People were harder to understand, but machines always followed rules. At least, that was what she believed. As she passed a storage door, the station lights flickered once. Then again. Lyra stopped walking. She looked up at the ceiling panels. Power cuts were rare. The station systems were old but stable. Something felt wrong. A loud alarm suddenly echoed through the corridor. Red lights flashed on the walls. The sound was sharp and urgent, cutting through the quiet like a blade. Lyra froze for half a second. Then she ran. Her tool case slipped from her hand and hit the floor, spilling tools across the corridor. She did not stop to pick them up. She ran toward the nearest control junction, her heart pounding hard in her chest. The alarm message repeated again and again. Unknown objects detected. Defense systems offline. All personnel take cover. Unknown objects. That made no sense. This station had no enemies. No one cared enough about this place to attack it. Lyra reached the junction panel and slammed her hand against the manual override. The screen lit up, filled with warning signs. External cameras turned on one by one. What she saw made her breath stop. Small black shapes moved outside the station. They were fast. Too fast. They flew in tight patterns, smooth and controlled. Each one had sharp edges and glowing red sensors. Combat drones. Lyra knew them from old training files. These were military machines, built for one purpose only: killing. Her hands shook as she switched camera views. There were more than 10, then 20. Then she lost count. They spread out around the station, scanning the surface. The drones did not fire right away. They searched. Lyra felt a strange chill run through her body. She did not know why, but deep inside, she felt watched. She looked down at her wrist screen. A red symbol flashed. Target lock confirmed. Her name appeared under it. Lyra stared at the screen, her mind refusing to understand what she was seeing. Target lock meant the drones had chosen something, or someone else. The station shook as something exploded on the outer hull. The sound rolled through the metal walls like thunder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra stumbled back, barely keeping her balance. The drones were not just scanning anymore. They were attacking. Lyra ran. She turned away from the junction and sprinted down the corridor. Doors slammed shut behind her as emergency systems tried to contain damage. Another explosion rocked the station. The lights went out completely for one long second, then came back dimmer than before. She reached a service hatch and pulled it open. The hatch led into a narrow maintenance tunnel, barely wide enough for one person. Lyra slipped inside and pulled the hatch shut, just as something slammed into the corridor outside. Metal screamed. Lyra pressed herself against the tunnel wall, holding her breath. She could hear sharp mechanical sounds on the other side of the hatch. Cutting tools, scanning pulses. The drones were close. Her mind raced. Why her? Why now? She was no one important, just an engineer on a forgotten station. The hatch began to glow red as heat built up. Lyra did not wait. Opening his eyes, she crawled deeper into the tunnel, scraping her arms and knees on rough metal. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading towards the station core. She had worked here many times before. She knew these paths better than anyone. Behind her, the hatch burst open. Metal pieces flew into the tunnel. Red lights spilled inside. A drone slid into view, its sensors locking onto her instantly. Lyra felt pure fear grip her chest. She pushed herself harder, ignoring the pain. The tunnel opened into a vertical shaft. Without thinking, she grabbed a ladder and climbed down as fast as she could. A beam of energy burned past her shoulder, scorching the ladder. Lyra screamed as heat washed over her back. She slipped, nearly falling, but managed to hold on. The drone hovered above the shaft, unable to follow her straight down. For now, Lyra dropped the last few meters and rolled onto the floor of a dark room. She slammed her hand onto a nearby control panel and sealed the shaft door just as another blast hit it from above. The room fell silent. Lyra lay on the floor, gasping for air. Her heart felt like it would burst. Slowly, she pushed herself up and looked around. The room was old, very old. Dust-covered, unused consoles. Thick cables ran along the walls. Warning signs marked the place as restricted. Lyra knew this room. It was part of the original station design, deactivated decades ago. No one used it anymore. The military core. Her breathing slowed as understanding settled in. The drones had chased her here, not by accident. They had guided her. The main console flickered to life on its own. A deep blue light filled the room. Symbols appeared on the screen, old symbols that modern systems no longer used. As system awakening. Lyra stepped closer, her fear mixing with curiosity. She reached out and touched the console. The station lights flickered again, this time in a steady rhythm. Outside, the drones paused their attack. Lyra could see them on a small side screen, hovering in place, waiting for something. The console spoke. Its voice was calm and cold. Identification required. Lyra swallowed. She placed her hand on the scanner. The machine hummed, then stopped. Identification accepted. She stared at the screen. Accepted. That should not have happened. She was not military. She never had been. New command access granted. Lyra felt a strange pressure in her head as data began to flow. Old battle logs, defense protocols, threat analysis. Her mind struggled to keep up. Outside, the drones suddenly moved again. Their sensors turned toward the room she was in. They had found her. Lyra clenched her fists. Fear was still there, but something else grew beside it. Focus, anger. They wanted her dead. She did not know why. She did not know who sent them. But one thing was clear. If she ran again, she would die. The station shook as the drones began cutting through the outer layers near the core. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the room. Lyra looked at the console, then at the data streaming across it. Old systems, simple logic, slow by modern standards. But she was human. She moved her hands across the controls, faster than the system expected. She changed power routes, locked internal doors, and rerouted sensor data. The military corps struggled to follow her commands. Outside, the drones hesitated. For the first time, they made a mistake. One drone drifted too close to the hull. A sudden power surge from the station overloaded its sensors. The drone spun out of control and slammed into another. They exploded in silence. Lyra stared at the screen, shocked. It worked. Her lips parted in a slow breath. She was still terrified. But now she knew something important. The drones were strong, but they were not perfect. The station lights steadied. The military corps adjusted its systems to match her input. Outside, the remaining drones regrouped, their red sensors glowing brighter. They were learning. Lyra straightened her back and wiped sweat from her face. She looked at the damage reports, the failing systems, and the incoming threats. She was trapped. But she was not helpless. As the drones prepared their next attack, Lyra placed both hands on the console and made a choice. If they had come to hunt her, then she would stop running. She would fight back. And she would do it faster than they expected. The station shuddered again as the drones continued their assault. Red lights flickered across walls and the corridors rattled with metal impacts. Lyra did not pause. She moved swiftly through the old military core room, her hands flying over the console. Every action, every command she entered was faster than the drones could adjust. Outside, the drones hovered, scanning the station. Their sensors moved back and forth, analyzing patterns. They were relentless, precise, and deadly. But Lyra noticed something strange. When she changed her commands, some of the drones hesitated. A slight delay, a small pause. That was all she needed. Lyra remembered old training files she had seen when she was younger. Machines followed rules. Logic was their limit. Instinct, creativity, and unpredictability were weaknesses they could not overcome. Humans had those in abundance. Her mind raced as she prepared her next move. She could not just hide anymore. The drones would eventually break through every door, every barricade, every trap she set. She needed allies. She moved to the communications panel and sent a call to the station control hub. Static hissed through the speakers before a voice responded. It was Rex, a retired pilot who had stayed behind when the station became mostly automated. He sounded tired, but alert. Lyra explained the situation quickly. The drones were targeting her specifically. They were not random attacks. They were hunting someone. And that someone was her. Rex swore under his breath but stayed calm. He told her to meet him at the main docking bay. Civilians were being moved to safer areas, but the path would be dangerous. Lyra grabbed a portable power unit and a small toolkit. She could not run blindly. She needed equipment, and she needed to make a plan. The station corridors were a maze, but she knew shortcuts. The old service tunnels, maintenance shafts, and storage rooms could help her avoid the drones, at least for a while. The first corridor she entered was full of sparks and broken panels. A drone passed nearby, its red sensors sweeping the walls. Lyra held her breath and pressed against the wall. The drone turned, its sensors almost grazing her. She waited until it moved on, then ran again. Her boots made quick, light sounds as she navigated the debris-filled hallways. She reached a storage area and grabbed several old cargo bots. They were simple machines, used to move supplies around. Lyra worked quickly, rewiring them with leftover power units and metal plates. She turned them into improvised shields and distractions. If she could make the drones focus on the bots instead of her, it would buy her time. Her hands were trembling, but her mind was sharp. Every second counted. She deployed a few cargo bots in the hallways, making them move randomly. When the drones detected them, they immediately focused their attention. Lyra held back a sigh of relief. The delay was enough for her to move closer to the main docking bay. The next corridor was a bigger challenge. More drones appeared, faster and more coordinated. They scanned systematically, anticipating her moves. Lyra realized the drones were learning. Every trick she used forced them to adjust. They were smarter than she had thought. Then she remembered something from the military core files. Attack patterns could be predicted if she forced the enemy into limited choices. Lyra made a decision. Instead of avoiding the drones, she would lead them into a trap. She set up a small area with power conduits exposed, creating a circuit overload risk. She guided the drones toward it. One drone hit the exposed conduits and sparked. The electricity jumped, short-circuiting the drone and causing it to explode in a small fireball. Another drone collided with the debris from the first, and another followed. Lyra watched, heart pounding, as the chain reaction disabled 3 of the drones at once. She had won this round. But the victory was temporary. The remaining drones adjusted their approach. They moved faster, more aggressively. Lyra knew they would not make the same mistake twice. At the docking bay, Rex waited with Astras and Mira, the station medic. They had brought a small group of civilians, guiding them to a reinforced section. Rex's face was tense. He had served in conflicts before, but nothing like this. Lyra explained her plan briefly, then turned to the control panel at the bay. She had discovered the drones were linked through a central network. If she could hack that, she could control them, or at least confuse them. Rex nodded. He would cover the civilians and keep them safe. Mira would assist with injuries and support. Lyra alone would handle the drones. Time was short. Outside, the drones circled the station, waiting. They were precise, calculating, but they could not anticipate human intuition. Lyra activated a feed to the drone network. She sent out a false signal, creating imaginary targets across the station. The drones hesitated. They split into smaller groups, investigating different areas. Lyra moved quickly, rerouting security doors to isolate them further. She watched as, one by one, the drones fell for the trick, attacking shadows and empty corridors. She allowed herself a brief smile. Humans could be clever, faster than machines expected. Suddenly, a new warning appeared on the console. Unknown energy signatures detected. The drones were sending a signal to something. Lyra frowned. It was a command update, possibly from the alien controllers she had never seen. The drones were learning, adapting. They would become more dangerous. She had no choice. She had to move before they adjusted again. She grabbed a small shuttle pod in the docking bay, thinking she could use it as a mobile command center. Rex and Mira helped her get inside. Civilians were safe, for now. The shuttle launched, moving around the station's exterior. Lyra accessed the drone network from the pod, sending fake signals, rerouting power to create disturbances, and isolating drones. One by one, she turned their focus away from her and toward other areas. She was a ghost to them, always one step ahead. Outside, the void of space was cold and silent, but inside the pod, tension was electric. Every second brought danger. Every choice could be fatal. Lyra's mind raced, combining logic and intuition. She realized the drones had underestimated humans. They thought they were predictable, slow, and bound by rules. Lyra proved them wrong. She looked at Rex and Mira. Both were tense but trusting her instincts. Lyra felt a sense of responsibility heavier than any tool she had ever handled. If she failed, lives would be lost. If she succeeded, humans would survive, and the drones would be weakened. The pod maneuvered close to the station core. Lyra planned her next move carefully. She would lure the drones into a confined area, where she could overload them using the station's power grid. It was risky. One mistake, and the pod would be destroyed. But if she succeeded, she could gain control over the remaining drones. The drones moved closer, sensing her presence. Lyra activated the final sequence, rerouting maximum power to key conduits. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and alarms screamed. The drones hesitated, then moved into the trap. A massive surge of energy coursed through the area. Drones twitched, sparks flying from their circuits. One by one, they collapsed, disabled but not entirely destroyed. Lyra exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. She had bought time, but the fight was far from over. Rex clapped her on the shoulder. Mira nodded, offering a small smile. They all knew the danger was not gone. Whoever sent the drones would adapt, send more, or try another plan. But for now, Lyra had proven one thing. Humans could think faster, react faster, and fight back smarter than machines ever expected. The pod moved back to a safe orbit around the station. Lyra looked at the wrecked domes floating in space, sparks still flickering from damaged circuits. Her mind already turned to the next step. She had learned their weakness, and she knew she could exploit it. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the station, something watched. The attackers had not revealed themselves fully. They were testing humans, learning, observing. Lyra understood this clearly. She had become a player in a larger game, one where survival depended on speed, skill, and ingenuity. For now, she had survived, but the next move would not wait long. She had to be ready. The station had quieted, but only for a moment. Lyra watched the damaged drones floating in space, sparks flickering from exposed circuits. The silence was deceptive. Outside, new energy readings appeared on her console. More drones were coming, faster and smarter than before. Whoever controlled them had adapted to her previous tactics. She did not panic. Fear had sharpened her mind. She moved swiftly, preparing defenses and checking power levels across the station. Every system she touched was old, fragile, but still capable under her hands. The station was like a puzzle, and she was learning to move pieces faster than her enemies could anticipate. Rex and Mira moved around her calmly. Rex checked the station's automated weapon systems, while Mira assisted injured workers who had been hiding during the attack. Their presence gave her focus, a reminder that humans worked best as a team. Machines could follow rules, but humans could coordinate, adapt, and improvise. That was their advantage. Lyra examined the drone network through the control panel. Patterns emerged. They were not just attacking. They were learning from every mistake. Each drone had a memory of her last move, adjusting slightly, anticipating future actions. But instinct could not be programmed. Creativity could not be simulated. Lyra had an idea. She directed Rex to lure a group of drones toward the docking bay. The civilians were safe in the reinforced area. Lyra modified some old cargo bots with improvised weapons and shields. She used them as mobile targets to confuse and slow down the drones. Sparks flew as drones collided with metal and energy bursts, giving humans a temporary advantage. Mira helped by monitoring power conduits and emergency systems. She patched minor damage as Lyra rerouted energy to shields and makeshift turrets. Each move was precise, careful, and fast. Their coordination was perfect. For a moment it felt like they were in control. Then the drones changed tactics. They split into smaller squads, circling the station from multiple angles. Lyra noted their new movement patterns. The drones had learned to predict simple traps. Her cargo bots would not fool them for long. The station shook as a larger group fired energy bursts at reinforced doors. Sparks and smoke filled corridors. The human team had seconds to react. Lyra acted quickly. She rerouted power to emergency lockdowns, sealing sections of the station to trap drones in narrow spaces. Those that were caught collided with walls or each other. Some systems overloaded, causing small explosions that rocked the nearby halls. Each blast forced the drones to hesitate, buying humans time. Rex shouted from the docking bay. A drone had broken through one of the outer defenses, heading toward the civilian area. Lyra activated the shuttle pod's external weapons, targeting the drone's movement sensors. The blast was precise, hitting the drone's outer hull. Sparks flew. The machine tumbled out of control and collided with another drone. The chain reaction disabled both. Lyra smiled briefly, but the sense of relief was temporary. The drone's commander, whoever they were, was not idle. Energy spikes indicated a central signal coordinating their movements. Lyra realized she needed more than defense. She needed to strike at the source. She plotted a course to the station's command core, the heart of old military systems. Rex covered the corridors, clearing paths and guiding civilians. Mira moved to support him, patching systems and keeping power stable. Lyra worked furiously, analyzing the drone network. Their logic was complex, but not unbreakable. As she reached the core, she discovered a weakness. The drone's central signal could be confused by simultaneous commands sent from multiple points. They would override each other if contradictory instructions were issued at the same time. Lyra set up a sequence across the station, using auxiliary terminals and improvised links. Her fingers flew over the controls. Commands flowed faster than any human outside could react. Outside, drones paused as their instructions conflicted. Their formations broke. Some fired at empty corridors, others hesitated mid-air. The humans had the advantage, but only for a moment. One drone moved unpredictably, targeting the core room directly. Lyra barely pressed the emergency shield in time. Sparks and heat filled the room as energy hit the outer panels. She ducked behind the console as debris scattered. The blast was strong, but the shield held. She took a deep breath, her focus unbroken. Another drone was approaching, faster than any before. Lyra did not hesitate. She triggered the auxiliary power, creating a sudden burst of energy that overloaded the drone's sensors. The machine spun wildly, crashing into a nearby wall. The impact sent pieces of metal flying. She barely avoided the debris. Mira helped stabilize the room's energy flow. Every action counted. The team had to be faster than the drones, smarter than the machines, and unpredictable. They had learned that humans did not follow patterns. Machines did. That gave them the edge. The station shook again as new drones approached. Lyra activated the shuttle pod's external systems again, coordinating with cargo bots and internal turrets. The drones were forced to divide their focus. Some were disabled by energy surges, others by collisions. Lyra's plan was working, but she knew the next wave would be harder. She studied the data streaming in from the damaged drones. Each one sent logs back to the central commander. The enemy was analyzing her strategy in real time. they would not make the same mistakes twice. Lyra needed to act faster. She remembered something from old files. Artificial intelligence could be tricked by creating multiple simultaneous threats that required choice. Lyra set up decoy signals across every corridor, every terminal, every monitoring point. The drones received conflicting commands, moving in unpredictable ways. They began attacking each other, causing more chaos. One by one, drones fell from the sky outside the station. Sparks and debris floated past observation windows. The humans cheered softly, but the relief was cautious. Lyra knew the enemy had not revealed themselves yet. They were learning, observing, waiting for the right moment. This was a test, a game of adaptation. Humans had won small battles, but the war was ongoing. Rex and Mira stood beside her, exhausted but resolute. The civilians were safe for now, and the station remained intact. Lyra knew she had gained an advantage, but it was fragile. The drones would return, smarter and more coordinated. She looked at the stars outside, dark and endless. Somewhere, whoever controlled these drones was watching. They had underestimated humans once. Lyra knew they would not underestimate them again. But she had learned their weaknesses. Humans were unpredictable. They could think faster, react faster, and strike back smarter. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. They had survived, and they had proven something important. The drones had underestimated humans, and that mistake would be remembered. The station settled into an uneasy calm. Sparks still floated from damaged systems, and alarms continued in minor bursts. Lyra, Rex, and Mira prepared for the next move. They knew it would come, faster and more dangerous than before. But they were ready. Humans were adaptable, relentless, and clever. And Lyra had just begun. The station had survived the first wave, but the sense of safety was only temporary. Outside, sensors showed a new fleet of drones approaching, larger and faster than before. They moved with precision, but Lyra noticed something different. They were cautious, hesitant, and more predictable than earlier waves. Humans had learned, and the enemy had begun to respect that fact. Lyra stood in the main control room, fingers flying across the old console. Rex monitored the corridors, guiding civilians to safe zones and setting up barricades. Mira moved between consoles and injured workers, patching systems and ensuring that power flowed where it was most needed. The three of them worked like a single organism, coordinating without words. The first drones entered the station's outer perimeter. They scanned systematically, expecting the humans to make the same mistakes as before. Lyra had anticipated this. She had set traps, rerouted power to metal plates, and used cargo bots as moving distractions. The drones activated cutting tools, but their movements were too mechanical. Lyra's improvised defenses worked. Several drones collided with walls or each other, sparks flying as circuits fried. Rex shouted over the comms. One drone had broken through the docking bay. Lyra acted immediately. She activated an old defense turret, which had been offline for years. The gun roared to life, firing a stream of concentrated energy. The drone spun out of control and collided with another. Lyra smiled briefly. The humans were turning the hunt around. But the drones were not idle. They sent new signals, coordinating more aggressively. Lyra realized they were learning faster now. If she did not escalate, the humans would be overwhelmed. She needed a bold plan. She decided to use the station itself as a weapon. Lyra accessed the core systems and rerouted power to sections of the station that could act as traps. Corridors would become electrified, doors would lock automatically, and cargo bots would move unpredictably. Every step she took was a calculated risk, designed to create chaos among the drones. Rex covered the civilians, leading them through reinforced corridors. Mira monitored energy levels, ensuring that Lyra's traps did not overload the entire system. The station hummed with power, old circuits glowing under strain. Lyra watched the drones on the screens, their formations breaking as they were forced into narrow paths and electrified zones. A drone entered the core room, firing energy beams at the console. Lyra pressed a sequence of buttons, activating a temporary shield. Sparks flew, the room shook, but the shield held. She was close to completing the trap. A few more steps, and the drones would be caught in a chain reaction that could disable them all. Outside, the drones began to realize they were being manipulated. They tried to coordinate attacks, but Lyra had anticipated their patterns. She activated multiple systems at once, sending conflicting signals to the drones. Their logic circuits overloaded, causing them to attack each other and collide with station structures. Explosions rocked the walls, and pieces of drones floated into space. The humans cheered quietly, but the celebration was short-lived. More drones appeared, larger and equipped with advanced weapons. They had adapted to her previous tactics and were not easily fooled. Lyra knew this was the final test. She needed to finish the fight before the station was overwhelmed. She turned to the shuttle pod, which she had modified into a mobile command center. Lyra used it to move outside the station, guiding the remaining drones into a confined section of the outer perimeter. The pod fired bursts of energy, cutting off escape routes and herding the drones into a kill zone. Rex and Mira monitored the interior systems, ensuring that the traps remained active. The drones entered the trap, moving in predictable patterns. Lyra activated the station's power grid at maximum capacity. Energy surged through the corridors and outer sections, hitting the drones with overwhelming force. Sparks, fire, and metal fragments filled the area. One by one, the drones were disabled, their circuits fried, their systems destroyed. For the first time, the humans were on the offensive. Lyra's strategy had turned the hunt into a trap. The drones that had sought to destroy her were now helpless, their own logic used against them. The station trembled under the strain, but the humans stood firm. Rex guided the last group of civilians to safety. Mira ensured that power levels remained stable, preventing the station from collapsing under the energy surges. Lyra monitored the outer sections, confirming that every drone in the immediate area was disabled. The humans had won this battle. But victory was not complete. The enemy fleet was still out there, watching and analyzing. They had underestimated humans once, but they would not underestimate them again. Lyra knew this clearly. She had proven that humans could adapt, think faster, and turn even desperate situations into advantages. The station settled into a tense calm. Sparks still flickered from damaged systems and alarms echoed in minor bursts. Lyra, Rex, and Mira prepared for the next phase. They had survived the hunt, turned the tide, and gained control of the situation. Outside, the stars were dark and endless. Somewhere beyond the void, the alien controllers observed. They had underestimated humans' creativity and resilience. Lyra understood this fully. The next encounter would not be easier. But humans had proven a powerful truth. They did not panic when hunted. They struck back faster. And now, the hunter had become the hunted. The station had survived the relentless attacks. But Lyra knew the fight was not over. Outside, sensors picked up the alien fleet that had controlled the drones. Their ships hovered at a distance, observing and calculating. They had underestimated humans once, but they would not underestimate them again. The aliens expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they would face strategy, ingenuity, and determination. Lyra moved swiftly through the main control room, her hands flying across the old console. She coordinated with Rex, who monitored internal corridors and reinforced areas where civilians were waiting. Mira kept track of power levels, ensuring the station systems could handle the strain of Lyra's plans. The humans were calm, focused, and working together. Outside, the alien ships began to deploy new drones. They moved in tight formations, scanning for weaknesses. Lyra observed them carefully. She knew the drones had limitations. They followed patterns, even when sophisticated. They could not anticipate human instinct and creativity. She activated a sequence across the station, rerouting power to multiple points simultaneously. Corridors became traps, cargo bots moved unpredictably, and emergency doors locked and unlocked at calculated intervals. The humans had learned from the previous attacks and were ready to turn the tide completely. The first wave of alien drones entered the station perimeter. Lyra's traps worked perfectly. Some drones collided with electrified panels. Others were caught by moving cargo bots or slammed into walls. Sparks flew. Metal twisted and circuits overloaded. The drones faltered, their coordination disrupted. Rex guided the civilians through safe corridors, avoiding the traps they had set for the enemy. Mira patched minor system failures and kept the station energy flowing steadily. Every human action complemented Lyra's strategy, creating a seamless defense and offense at the same time. Lyra focused on the drone network. She could intercept signals from the alien ships and send false commands, creating confusion among the drones. Some attacked each other while others moved into areas rigged to disable them completely. One by one, the alien machines were neutralized, their circuits fried or destroyed by collisions. The alien fleet reacted, deploying larger drones and heavier weapons. Beams of energy streaked toward the station, tearing through hull panels and setting fire to exposed metal. Lyra pressed buttons on the console, activating station defenses, turrets, and external weapons. Energy shields flared, absorbing the worst of the blasts. The humans were no longer on the defensive. Lyra used the shuttle pod, modified into a mobile command and attack unit, to intercept drones approaching critical areas. She guided them into traps, using the station's power and her understanding of drone behavior to disable them quickly. The sparks and explosions lit the dark void outside, signaling humanity's growing dominance in the battle. Rex shouted over the comms as a drone broke through a corridor. Lyra triggered a rapid burst of energy from the pod's external systems. The drone spun uncontrollably and crashed into the hull. Another followed, and another. The humans had turned the hunt into a controlled battlefield. Every action was calculated, precise, and deadly. Mira monitored the civilians, ensuring their safety while also tracking power surges and system integrity. Lyra watched the alien drones, noting every movement. The enemy had underestimated human adaptability. They had assumed speed and logic alone could defeat them. They were wrong. The aliens sent a warning through the drone network, trying to regain control. Lyra intercepted the signal, rerouting it to cause internal conflicts among the drones. Instructions conflicted, and the machines turned on each other. Sparks, fire, and twisted metal filled the observation windows. Lyra felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Humans were not just surviving. They were dominating. Rex and Mira exchanged glances, their exhaustion clear but their determination unwavering. They had been tested and had proven capable. The station, old and fragile, had survived because humans had adapted, fought smarter, and used every advantage available. The aliens had expected fear. They found courage and creativity. The alien fleet observed from a distance, realizing their drones were ineffective against humans. They had underestimated the instinct, ingenuity, and resilience of a species they considered primitive. Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would learn, but humans would continue to surprise them. Lyra activated a final sequence to disable the remaining drones. Energy surged across the station, targeting key circuits and control points. One by one, the alien machines fell, sparks flying as systems failed. The humans had won the immediate battle. The station trembled under the strain, but the systems held. Lyra, Rex, and Mira took a moment to breathe, looking at the destruction of the drones outside. The civilians were safe, the station intact, and the humans victorious. They had faced a relentless, superior enemy and had adapted to survive. The alien fleet retreated, recognizing the humans as a threat too dangerous to ignore. Lyra watched them disappear into the dark expanse of space, knowing the enemy had learned a vital lesson. Humans could not be predicted, could not be controlled, and would strike back faster than any machine or logic system could handle. Rex clapped Lyra on the shoulder, a quiet acknowledgement of her leadership and bravery. Mira offered a tired but proud smile. The station had survived, and humanity had proven a point to anyone watching from beyond the stars. Lyra looked out at the void, stars shining cold and distant. Somewhere other eyes were watching, and now they knew a truth they could not ignore. Humans did not panic when hunted. Humans fought back. Humans adapted. Humans struck faster. And this was only the beginning.